Ladies and gentlemen, brosners alike, welcome back to The Wild Times. This is episode 43. As always, I am your host, the broologist Forrest Galante, joined by the ever-handsome broducer, Mr. Patrick DeLuca. How are you, Pat?
Usually you call Retep handsome, so I'm great. I wasn't that good, and now I'm great.
Feeling flattered. Yeah, see? Every now and then I'll just throw a switch up in, and you'll be like, whoa, I'm the handsome guy? Yeah. The slightly less attractive but much meaner professor, Mr. Peter Retep. How are you, Retep?
Fuck you, Forrest. Thanks.
That's rude. Mm-hmm. And finally, the person that I'm by far the most excited to talk to, New York Times mega-selling author, Special Forces soldier, adventure sportsman, champion strongman, qualified cosmonaut, I don't know what that is, renowned wildlife expert, he makes me look like a dum-dum, international conservation leader, and TV host, someone I've been super excited to talk to for a very long time, the one and only Mr. Bradley Trevor Greive.
Mate,
Yo.
So lovely to be here, gentlemen. It's a pleasure to varying degrees.
Wonderful.
Cheers, mate.
That was a hell of an intro. I was trying to memorize all that. It was quite something. But BTG, how are you, man? It's so good to finally connect with you. Like I said, your name has been said to me thousands of times, and I've always been excited to connect with you.
I am actually just shocked and mildly offended that we haven't crossed paths until this moment.
Doesn't seem right.
I'm from Tasmania. You've been there many times.
Yep.
I've spent a lot of time in Cape York. You've been there many times. I would say that we've been in many of the same countries, maybe weeks or months apart. So
right.
If I'm grateful for the pandemic, it's for two reasons. One, that I've been nurturing this false head of hair now since February last year. Thank you. You know what it's based on? You've seen the Mary River turtle? You know
Of course. The little green algae mohawk that floated around Instagram that was so popular.
Precisely, and that's what I have. I have a Mary River turtle kind of wispy skull merkin that I've nurtured now for 11 months. And the fact that now, at least digitally, I've been able to track you down. So I'm very grateful for that.
You know what? I'm going to have to just go back on something I said. We might even need an edit because I called Patrick handsome. And now that I've compared you to the Murray River turtle and the green fry, it's the wrong guy. I used handsome in the wrong place. It's you.
You fucked it up.
I did. It's unfortunate.
Forrest, last time we were in Madagascar doing a little look around for a hippo. Bradley, I think you were landing in Tana the day we left or something like that.
I remember that.
For
I
Little
remember you
Giants.
telling me that. Yeah, that's right.
I called you and asked for some tips on some local guides and experts because we hit a snag.
That's right.
And you actually texted me back some really valuable information. So you kind of saved our asses. And you predicted that every member of my team would have some sort of gastrointestinal distress before the tour was out. And we did.
Oh, my God.
We did.
Oh, yeah.
We were turtling and mud-butting through almost every show.
Mud-butting.
Dude,
I've
not
never
Madagascar
been...
without it. Yeah.
If you don't poop the bed, you're really not visiting Madagascar. That's just the truth.
It's something we've discussed on this show quite a few times. That experience.
Way too much.
Yeah.
What were you doing? What were you looking for in Madagascar? I remember you were going to a place that I've never been there for Little Giants. What were you doing?
Yeah, so we were looking for Little Giants. We had several, actually. Some that we didn't manage to get to just purely because of the distances, relatively speaking, are not that great. But as you know, travel is extremely difficult.
Yeah.
And so we really hope to get up north to some of these tiny chameleons and also to see the pelican spiders. And I was speaking to some of the experts at the Smithsonian about them. And I bought myself a pooter. You ever use a little pooter to catch the tiny spiders? It's basically like a turkey baster, but you just... puff the air out of it. Because these spiders are only about the size of a grain of rice or maybe a grain of wheat. If you're going to be a grain Nazi. And so there I was finally, on the 9th largest island in the world with my pooter and couldn't get those spiders. But we got some of we got the smallest or one of the smallest of the mouse lemurs.
Cool.
And we also got... we were looking for a lot of the tenrecs, but specifically I really, really wanted to capture good footage and get a hold of some of those lowland striped tenrecs. And the ones that have the little knitting needle semaphore on their butt, and they can send out those subsonic singles.
They make sound with it. Yeah, we actually encountered one on our first trip to Madagascar, believe it or not.
Nice.
It was running around outside of our lodge, and I flipped over a palm frond, and it was there with the whole family, and we picked it up and did a whole beat on it. It was incredible. And it was something you could have never planned for. You know, like we could have looked for 2 months and never found one, and one was scurrying around in front of the lodge. But you know what, Bradley? That I don't want to jump into just everything that we do on the podcast straight away because I've got a million questions for you. But one thing that came up that's super relevant to what we're talking about, did you see that this week they named the new smallest Brachysia species in the world? The new smallest chameleon species was identified this week.
I read that, and I was so excited. I mean, these things. Do you want to talk about that now, or
let's dig into it?
It's in the news. What's in the news?
I love this so much. So the smallest, not just the smallest chameleon, but the smallest lizard.
Yeah.
And knocking on the door of smallest reptile, certainly by weight.
Yep.
And what I love about these guys is, and the big fact, and I'm sure you know this because this is a phallic-centric show. Is they're disproportionately large member.
Oh yeah.
Wow.
But isn't that exquisite?
Is that on someone's finger or is that its own penis?
Oh shit!
All right,
that's a good one.
But the thing that I love about it for all these tiny species of chameleon is that their penis is inversely proportional to the size of their tongue.
Right.
They have relatively speaking, even though they still have the hydrostatic projectile that is a chameleon's tongue, it's actually much more attached and doesn't go out very far. And this relates back to both howler monkeys, as you recall. Mm-hmm. Howler monkeys that call the loudest have the smallest testicles. And of course, FDR, speak softly, carry a very big stick.
Just to illustrate the penis size of this thing, I'm reading here on the show doc, it's 18.5% of its total body size. That's the equivalent of me having a 14.5-inch dick. I'm just saying.
Did you actually do that math, or
Will
you
did the
just
math
guessing?
And put it.
Producer Will did the math.
Okay.
I don't do the math.
Well, good for that chameleon. Jeez. But, just like a human with a 15-inch penis, maybe makes it a little harder to reproduce, and maybe that's why they're just getting discovered in 2021. You know what I mean?
That's a hell of a concept, yeah.
My question is this. Penis size and mating and, mating competition are usually related. More... And you want a longer penis to get further inside the female so that your sperm gets ahead of the competitor's sperm, etc. What is happening for these tiny guys that travel about 4 or 5 inches a day on the ground and nest, 2 inches up a plant? What kind of mad bacchanalian sexual festival is going on there that they need this outrageous jousting stick of the pants?
It's like they're whiskers.
You're supposed to answer that. Do you not know the answer? You're a herp guy.
Yeah, it's a phenomenal question. It's interesting. I've never seen Peter take notes before, but he's very invested in this. But no, I mean, Bradley really summed it up. It's that competition as far as he said, penetration to make sure that your sperm is the one that gets, replicated and turns into offspring. And it's like a peacock's tail, right? It never ends. It just gets bigger and bigger and bigger as evolutionary time goes. We're only we're only a million years away from this chameleon being nothing but penis. It's just going to be a penis with 4 legs. Yeah, that's all it's going to be. Yeah.
I got a question. So, Bradley, I've been out with you. Bradley and I worked on a documentary in Admiralty Island in Alaska, filming bear. We didn't use any, there were so many bear there, we didn't have to use any sort of bait whatsoever. We didn't put any meat out or anything like that on our camera traps. Obviously, Forrest, we built an entire tree out of meat in Zanzibar.
Sure did.
Oh, for the leopard?
Yeah.
It was super fun.
When you were looking for predators, there's certain things you can do. Bradley had a show on Animal Planet that went the same way as Extinct or Alive. I don't think COVID helped either of us out too much as far as filming a big international show. But when you're looking for tiny insects for a TV show, how do you start by going, I want to find this 1 centimeter long spider?
Interesting. Bradley, you should really weigh in on that. I mean, I loved Little Giants. I was very disappointed when that didn't continue because I thought And for anybody listening to this, Bradley had a show on Animal Planet called Little Giants, where what they would do is they would go and find these incredible tiny animals like the Brachygia, the tiny chameleon we were just talking about, and they would blow them up to the larger proportion so that you could understand their superpowers, so to speak, their relative strength, their relative size, their relative speed, et cetera, et cetera.
That's super cool.
Yeah, and so that's the show that Bradley did with a co-host. I'm blanking on his name right now.
Billy Arman.
With Billy, and it was super fun and very, very educational. Now, I want to let you talk here in a second, Bradley, but when Patrick and I pitched, Animal Planet and go, hey, we're going to go look for this extinct 3-foot-long snake, they're like, oh, it's only 3 feet? No, you can't do that. That's stupid. Like, nobody's going to watch that. Meanwhile, Bradley, you successfully had this show where you guys were looking for things the size of a pinhead. So, yeah, tell us about it.
Well, the funny thing is that the way that it came about was not just due to my natural passion for tiny, extraordinary creatures, but to the fickleness of television executives. So Patrick and I did a 2-hour documentary on these gigantic bears on the island of Kutsnawu in the Alexander Archipelago. Mm-hmm. And long story short, we helped identify this gigantic subspecies that was a hybrid species from the Ice Age. They love this so much, they said, can you get this same basic recipe and do it all over the world? Find these huge specimens that are relics of a lost time and explain that, get the DNA sample and break it down for us. And so we put that together. Then there was a huge culture shift and they fired everybody, as happens in TV every 2 years. And then you guys go, yeah, we don't want big and scary, which was my brand. We want small and cuddly. And I go, oh, so instead of finding giants, how about little giants? Love it. So off you go. So for 5 seconds, we had this mandate to do these extraordinary little animals. But as we got deeper into it, we wanted it to be scarier. So then we had to keep adding venomous, dangerous, creepy things to it to make it just the nature of the beast. But how do we find them? Well, that's the trick. A lot of what we do is look for conditions that would force them to be in one place over another. So, for example, when we're looking for Sonoran centipedes, let's do it in the middle of the day when it's so hot in the desert that they have to find sanctuary in the shade. Mm-hmm. So that concentrates them together. In the same way that you look for animals during a drought at waterholes.
Sure.
Similar principles. But with the really tiny ones, and the hardest one to find was the devil's mantis in Mozambique, which was already at the southern end of its range. I mean, literally, we just checked 1 million leaves.
Yeah, I thought so. Yeah. Oh God, that must have been tedious. But I'm sure you were in heaven. But good Lord, the producer I'm sure was there, just like, oh my God, more leaves today.
Yeah, and I'm one of those people that I like to think I'm a good person and a noble entity. But the suffering of others delights me. So I actually didn't mind that at all.
Wonderful.
Yeah,
hey,
I've
Will,
seen that.
Google Devil's Flower Mantis, because that's the one we're talking about, and you'll find a better picture. They're incredible animals. But Bradley, so you guys did find one. How many days did it take? So I've been to Madagascar a number of times, as we discussed. I was there a day before you landed last time. And one of the animals that we looked for were leaf-tail geckos, right? And you know what they're like, right? I mean, they blend in. You could be a foot away from one staring at it, and you can't see it on the trunk of a tree. And I'm sure these mantis are the same. I've never targeted them. But how long did it take? How happy were you when you found one? Like, tell us a little bit about it.
Well, we actually did it in 3 days. We were pretty lucky, and
fuck me then.
But we I have to say we had about 7 people. I mean, that's the myth. Look, obviously in these TV shows, obviously we edit them to be more exciting.
Right.
I will sometimes capture several specimens, and then we'll just film the best one or the most active one or whatever we're doing. Mm-hmm. So we definitely play with reality a little bit in order to communicate the larger points of the story more effectively. But, I was trying to explain to the team the principle of staring through things. So when you're in a military operation, you need to learn to look through trees and to look for certain signature shapes. So if you can program your brain to look for certain triggers, and so obviously the raptorial arms are a great giveaway. Mm-hmm. The lozenge-shaped head is a great giveaway. And I said, look for a movement that is slightly out of sync with the movement of the leaf, because of course all the mantids in general, and the phasmids, they start to sway, and sometimes they're just slightly out of sync with the breeze that's happening. And let me tell you, we found a metric shit ton of dragonflies and butterflies and beetles, but eventually, and it wasn't even like a 7th instar. It was like a 3rd instar. It was tiny. It was about the size of a dime in terms of height. It was very, very hard to find, and a beautiful purple color, but exquisite little creature, and you literally feel like you're holding a living gem.
Right. Yeah, that's amazing. I remember when we were in Zanzibar, Patrick, and we were walking through the forest at night.
Just thinking about it.
About the flap-neck chameleon. Yeah, tell the story, because from your perspective, it's probably funnier.
When you said see through things, it made me think immediately of, and I like to make fun of Forrest. I give him a lot of shit.
Really?
So that people don't think I'm just blowing him when I give him a compliment. But there were times where he would see something in the dark and say, "You see that?" And I would look, and he'd be like, "Look." And I would be looking, and I couldn't see it. And then he would shine his flashlight on it, and I still couldn't see oftentimes. It would be a chameleon pretty far away. The chameleon, and then what were the little primates that we were seeing all over?
The bush babies?
Yeah.
Little bush babies. Yeah, Galagos or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, Galagos.
I don't understand. Is that ability to see through things and spot animals? Is that just from repetition? Do you think there's some genetic component to just, I don't know, your peripheral vision being different? Like it's clearly a talent. Michael Phelps swims really fast. I don't.
Yeah, it's
some
a
people
learned
can spot
skill.
animals.
I'm curious. Sorry, Patrick. I didn't mean to interrupt. I'm curious to hear what you think, Bradley. But I think it's repetition. And it's a learned skill. It's looking to see an abnormality in a landscape. You look out, and you're looking for this abnormality. In the case of a chameleon, I remember with that one flapneck that I was talking about in particular, I saw his tail curl. Right, and it was just too perfect. It was too symmetrical. It didn't match the ferns that had that curl. And I was like, "Oh, that's a chameleon," right? And I could just tell by the shape of the tail curl and the way it was curled up that was a chameleon, and it stood out. I mean, what do you think, Bradley?
I think that the evidence suggests that visual acuity is inversely proportional to masturbation. So I think that explains Patrick's deficiencies.
Okay. I think I read that in Naked Ape. Yeah, you're right.
I agree with you, Forrest, and I would just expand that thought one more. It's practice. It is a learned technique.
Yeah.
It is experience. It's having seen that animal and from a computer point of view, it's called fuzzy logic, being able to understand how it would look from different angles. But when I was at Jungle Warfare School, they used to talk about the sixth sense as a very tangible thing. Not as some spiritual hokey-pokey ghost thing, but merely as a infinitesimally small registration on any of the other five senses. So small that you can't necessarily pin it down. You can't say that's that shape, or that's that sound, or that's that smell, or that texture, but just enough of one or more of your five senses that it's informing you that you have registered something you can't quite ascertain. And so they used to teach us in Jungle Warfare School that if you feel someone is watching you, someone is watching you, and that's just sixth sense letting you know.
Yeah, baby.
And so I feel that exactly what you're saying. It's the technique, it's the experience, but you do it so much that you learn to trust that little inkling, and that's how you get good at it.
Bradley,
that double take, right? You do that double take where you scan through it, and then there's something that brings you back, and you don't even know what it was on the initial scan, right? And it brings you back to that point, and then you can start to register the information as to what that little thing is, whether it's someone looking at you or et cetera, right? Chameleon curl of a tail, et cetera.
And but here's one of the things about that, particularly in our business, is you can get too good at it. And what that happens then is that you're so good at focusing on particular visual, audible, or scent cues that you're oblivious to a lot of other things that should really tell you that to look around. I'll give you an example. We used to do these anti-handling objects, so booby trap lanes, looking for things. And in your mind, you're so used to looking for these tiny, drab, matte olive painted wires and little tiny elevations in bark and things like that might mean there's a booby trap there or a landmine.
This is in the military, right? What you're saying?
Right. Okay. Yeah, in the military. And so you wouldn't actually see anything significant. So you could put a red handkerchief or a hamburger on the ground, and I wouldn't see that because I'm looking for these things. And so sometimes we get ourselves in trouble. We're so dialed in, particularly for tiny creatures such as insects and small reptiles, that we don't see a giant snake curled up necessarily,
right.
or
Mm-hmm.
big pile of lion crap. And it's important to balance that technique with general awareness in order to have optimal efficiency in the bush.
Bradley,
You know what I find, Bradley? Sorry, go ahead, Peter.
I was just gonna
have
ask-
a dog leg from this.
I was just going to ask, what's like you're in the Special Forces, man. Special Forces is like intense. As a layman on this podcast, I'm like, we have somebody on the podcast who's in the Special Forces. What's like the craziest fucking thing you experienced in the Special Forces?
Well, I remember doing, and this isn't I have a couple of lowlights and highlights that come to mind immediately. One was just miserable when we were doing a rehearsal operation in Northern Australia near the Arafura Sea, and it was a night insertion. I'm carrying my own body weight in gear, and I go through a tree, and of course you can't see the ground, and I land on my backpack and fracture my ankle. And then I have to hump it 50 miles with that ankle.
Oh, man.
And I didn't even bother to look at it. I just gaffer taped the outside of my boot and off we went, because you're leading a platoon and you got to do the thing. I remember that being miserable and hating it at the time, and now just loving that I used to be someone who could do that.
Right. Looking back and being like, wow, I was really capable.
Another time I remember, we've been doing jungle warfare school. There's a couple of them in Australia, but one that just rained the entire time. And someone trying to help everybody, give them a bit of a morale boost, because it was freezing cold in the middle of winter and yet raining the whole time. It was very strange conditions. And we'd had some strange mishaps. Like one day I only covered 100 yards a day because there's this greasy red mud up this hill through the rainforest, and we covered in a whole day of patrolling about 110 yards. I mean, that's how awful it was.
Just
Can you imagine doing
slipping
that
backwards the whole time.
It's like when you guys were
horrible.
crawling around trying to find the Fernandino turtle or whatever it's called. Just every day, incrementally moving, but he's way cooler.
Exactly. Yep.
You guys are cool.
And so, and anyway, they went to a non-tactical state and let everyone light fires for the first time. That was step number one. And that was a bad call because some guy, you know how when you ever seen those old army rations and you got the cans of things like cans of cheese and whatever?
Yeah, the
and
MREs.
Right. Well, this is pre-MRE, but yes.
Okay.
And so what you do is you grab the can, you hit it on the side of your boot to form indentations all the way around. Mm-hmm. You put it in the fire, and then when that expands, it means it's cooked. And you can notice it expanding, right?
Sure.
If you don't do that, you're never really sure how big. Anyway, some guy doesn't do it to a little thing of cheese. It blows up, slices his carotid. Now there's a medevac.
No way.
The guy, so now the guy's going to be, cheese murdered in the middle of the rainforest. Morale is low. And then someone trying to help us go, you know what, these boys have been out there for a long time. They're all cold and wet and covered in fungus. Let's give them a hot meal. And so they brought in this army catering unit, and they put in they grilled these steaks and whatever else. So we hump it in. By the time we get there, all the bain maries are full of water. The steaks are floating. We eat them anyway. We've been eating rats for 6 weeks.
Damn.
Now we're eating steak, and immediately we're just crapping ourselves, and I couldn't make it into cover. So I just get out my killing knife and I'm cutting my underwear off and my pants up. And just like, that's a battle casualty.
Is that
I got
a
more of
lowlight
those
or a
stupid
highlight?
stories.
That's good
It's
stuff.
it's a great lesson, okay?
That was the night you met your wife, right?
That is she found the underwear. It had my name and phone number on it. She texted me.
No.
Happily married, beautiful daughter.
Are you
So
kidding
the
me?
lesson there, Brosners, if you're listening, is if you've been eating rats in the jungle for 6 weeks, don't eat a steak. That's all you have to do.
Yeah,
That's it.
two different.
Don't eat a steak. But and the important thing is, don't go soft. Don't think you deserve a reward for suffering. Just suffer and enjoy the fact that you're able to suffer.
Embrace the suffering. Embrace the suffering.
Don't ever think you've earned a fucking day to relax. Everybody hear that? Everybody just
Who
keep
needs
going.
hot cheese? Would you rather have hot cheese, or would you rather not be dead?
Personally, I'd have hot cheese.
Oh, it depends. If I'm at a baseball game, I want that cheese pretty hot.
Laying in bed, I'd just rather be dead. Fuck it.
Bradley, I want to go back to something we were talking about earlier, because with your formal training, you might have an answer to this, and it's something that has always, I've never understood it. So I grew up in Zimbabwe, right? I grew up learning to track in the bush and read tracking signs and spot animals and all the things that we just discussed. Anywhere I go, I think that I take in pretty much most of the information, right? I'm walking through the woods and I go, oh, there's this kind of trees and it's this kind of soil and the weather's doing this and the wind's blowing that way. I'm sure you were trained to do the same thing, right? So you just take in all this information. I never get lost in the bush, and Patrick can attest to that. We'll be 40 miles out and I'll be like, turn around, we're going south and we're back, right? I literally don't think I've ever been lost outdoors. If you put me in New York City, and I'm serious, I'm not saying this for the humor, if I turn left once, I'm completely lost. And there's this flood of information because there's all these flashing lights and these signs and these stores and these high-rises and these street colors and there's all this information. And I'm very serious. I'm really curious about this, that I cannot take in. Like, it's like an overload of information when I go to a city. And instantly, I'm lost. And I don't just say that to be, like, cute or funny. Like, I cannot navigate my way around a city. I can't navigate my way around big development, like all these things where there's so much overstimulation of information that I lose it straight away. Whereas you can drop me in the middle of absolute nowhere and I know exactly what I'm doing.
So you're saying, Forrest, that you can't function in regular society, but in a forest you're good.
Basically, yes. That's basically what I think. But I'm dead serious, man. I just can't. Like when I go to New York for meetings and stuff, if I don't pull out my phone and look at the maps, I cannot do it. It's too much information. I can't walk down a street and come back and recognize points that allow me to get back. It's like I'm trying to take in every single street sign and every single name and every single window reflection, and I just can't. It's an overload of information.
So basically, what you're asking is Bradley equally as non-functional and
stupid?
Quite pathetic as you in
outside
cities?
of a jungle
That's
setting?
my question.
I'm not a city person. In fact, I would never have met Patrick and done spent all those years with the Tlingit and then met Patrick if I hadn't hated the city so much. So I came out here on a sabbatical and fell in love with the love of my life, and now my wife, mother of my beautiful daughter, and I love her, and I hated being in Los Angeles. I mean, there are more people. And not to denigrate Los Angeles. I mean,
you can denigrate away.
It's
a shithole.
Sure. I'm not saying it's a worthless smug bubble of vapid vegans, but what I am saying, there's more people in this city than my entire country. I'm from Tasmania.
Yeah.
Right.
I live on the east coast of Tasmania, where in front of my farm there. Yeah. Like in the course of an entire summer, there were 6 people on my beach, and 4 of them were penguins. So LA was doing my head in. I was so miserable, and I just said I can't. I just too much all the time. And so I started researching bears and the Tlingit people. I went to Alaska and the rest they say. But let me ask you a question. Have you formally studied navigation, or have you self-taught?
Self-taught. I've never had any formal training in navigation.
So there's several aspects to what is causing this phenomenon for you, and there's an easy way to fix it.
Sure.
All right.
The first is what you're relying on are 2 different things. Firstly is an incredible memory of objects that mean something to you, and you're navigating by memory.
Yeah.
And that's great while your memory's so sharp. But there'll come a time for various conditions and aging and what else that you will lose that.
Sure.
And my dad is a very smart man, and he's a gifted surgeon. He's retired now, and he navigated by memory when he was younger, and then as he got older, he would start getting lost. So first is memory, because objects, you lock them in because you care about them. The other thing is subconsciously, even though human beings don't have that pineal eye, that third eye that a lot of fish and a lot of marine animals and reptiles have, which is a very ancient form of navigation as well as a defensive system.
Right.
We are still attuned to the sun. And so the sun is acting as a compass for you, even though you don't consciously acknowledge it. So, for example, when you can make an easy compass with a stick in the sand, but on the equator, and I'm sure you've been to the Amazon at least as many times as I have, if not more. And I remember doing a tour with the Amazon Rangers, we were basically trying to recapture, poached parrots and primates. And they would just do the simplest technique of all, which is remember where the sun is on your way out, on which part of your shoulder, and then it should be on, flip it on the way back.
Yeah.
So that's a simple an ancient method, you're doing that subconsciously by knowing where the sun is in relation with you moving. So in other words, it's the acuity of your brain that's allowing you not to make mistakes, even though you're not using formal navigation tools.
Interesting.
And one of the easiest ways for you to get around anywhere, and remember, I'm a little bit older than most of the people on this podcast, so I still wear an old watch. And I recommend, if you don't want to carry a compass, and obviously iPhones are garbage once you get out in the sticks because they're just basically paperweights, isn't it? I carry a watch. You learn how to navigate by your watch. You put you know how to do it. You know, put the hour hand and thing.
Peter and I don't. How do you navigate with a watch?
It's really very easy. You point the southern hemisphere anyway. You point the 12. You point the 12 at the sun.
Yep.
Okay. There's the hour hand. Halfway between that is north.
Right.
Okay.
Now that I used to use that when I first started coming to Los Angeles 26 years ago, and you had paper maps, and that's it. Wow. And you're folding out this picnic blanket in the car. And I actually did have an accident. I crashed into a Volvo on the 405 doing that many years ago. Now I just go, okay, I know where I'm going is west. Right. Here's north, and I'll gradually get there. So I would say that if you don't want to rely on a smartphone, just learn how to navigate with your watch. And
that's kind of cool. I didn't know you could do that.
It's anywhere in the world. That's why these old timepieces never go out of stock.
I got a question for probably Forrest and BTG. I've heard mixed reviews on this factoid or whatever, but I've tried to use it when I've been in the woods, and that's that the moss will always be on the north side, growing on the north. And then I've been told it's bullshit. And I'm out there in the woods, like it's on the north side. We're going north. I know we are. And so that's bullshit, yeah?
Absolutely.
Bradley, go ahead, but I'll explain some of it.
There are some very rare occasions when that is absolutely true.
Yeah.
But
great.
By and large, you have to remember that moss isn't caused by the absence of sunlight.
Right.
It's caused by other atmospheric conditions of moisture and nutrition and a whole bunch of different things. Plus, the wind and the light get altered coming through the trees.
Right.
So no, if you do that, you will end up living on moss.
You'll just be walking in circles because every single tree will have its slightly different angle, and you'll just be going in circles around all the trees following the moss forever.
An old wives' tale.
Now here's a question, Bradley. So typically when Forrest is in New York, we're together because we've gone to have some meeting or whatever. When I make him go search for a suitable slice of New York pizza at 2 a.m. and the sun's not up, now what are we doing?
Well, and that's particularly hard because you've got cloud cover and no access to the stars.
That's right.
I think.
Pay attention to the street signs, you fucking idiot.
Smell the sewers.
There's actually
go by the sewer smell.
There is a technique specific to New York, and that is you bump into anybody and you say, I want to go. What's the name of that famous pizza? The original Ray's, right?
Yeah.
You say, I want a slice. I'm going. So you see two people walking down the street in the middle of the night, and you say, where is the original Ray's? And they will immediately start arguing over which one was the original. And from a series of those arguments, you will ascertain where you are in New York City.
There
Understood.
you go.
It's the same thing in Chicago. You ask somebody where Giordano's is, and they'll be like, oh, no, you don't want to go there. You got to go to Uno's. You got to go to Gino's East. Everybody's got the opinion, but you'll get to a fucking pizza place eventually.
And no matter which one you go to, you'll get fat, and it's disgusting because Chicago deep dish is revolting.
Oh,
fuck. See, I've never gained a pound from Chicago deep dish because
I don't understand it.
It's
so
like
gross.
lasagna. Do you understand lasagna? Come on.
It's not like lasagna. It's just a brick of cheese with carbs under it. It doesn't make any sense.
Just because you've been working out, now you're just like, I don't eat fucking pizza. I eat grubs. Fuck off. Sorry.
There are so many great places to eat. I remember going to a place called Girl and Goat in Chicago. Some of the best food I've ever had in my life. Some of the best restauants in America.
Yes,
remember that was
absolutely.
the home of Charlie Trotter, the world's first... what do they call it? Heston Blumenthal is another one. All these sciencey, chefy things with the foams and the gels.
I know what you're talking about. Where they mix the science and all the smokes and everything while they're making your food. Yeah.
I've got kind of a funny... Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Bradley.
Molecular gastronomy. You don't want a hot dog. You want a lavender and sheepshank enema. And it's like... And then this deep dish thing, it's like a shortbread bucket full of sadness.
Fuck off! It's
with
the
you, man.
original. So you're a New York pizza guy, Pat. Pat, you've lived in New York, and I've heard you talk about how much you love a Chicago deep dish. I've also heard that you ordered one and fell asleep in the hotel room and didn't eat a single bite. So
I
I
was
think if you're
with
not
you
from
that
America, you don't understand it. I think, you know,
I get that.
I'm from Africa. Bradley's from Australia. We just don't understand it.
All right, so when Bradley and I were in Alaska, we went up for a scout trip, right? Before the cruise, about a week before. I had to come back for something. And basically, in the time that we were getting ready to shoot, several days before, essentially, the network was like, we'd really like to have a co-host, just so that Bradley has someone to talk to. And so there was this feverish...
Let me just interrupt for a second. That's never the most irritating thing that a network does ever.
No.
When you're super invested in something, you've worked on it for years, you've been researching the topic, you know, it's your entire field of study, and they're like, hey, why don't we just find someone, I don't know, kind of funny, you know, so tall, this ethnicity, and they could be your co-host. You know, they'll know as much as you.
Which was the case. I mean, Bradley had spent years up there just getting access, had become a brother in the Tlingit tribe or a member of the Tlingit tribe. This was just to get access. And then several days before, they're like, you know, let's give him someone to talk to. So it ends up being a great guy. We're friends with him now, but I'm going to make fun of him for a second.
Sure, we love him.
Yeah, so this guy, Johnny, comes on. And he just was game. He showed up. He had done some travel adventure stuff. He shows up, and he very quickly, within about a day or two, earns the nickname Johnny Inches.
Okay.
So Peter and Forrest, I'm going to give you each a guess as to how he got the nickname Johnny Inches. And then Bradley will tell you how he got that nickname.
Peter, you go first.
All right. Well, like our small lizard friend, but the opposite, he had a tiny dick that he navigated the area with outwardly, and it was the first thing you noticed about him, so you started calling him Johnny Inches.
Wow.
Good guess.
Okay.
Forrest.
That's a good guess.
Any
I'm going to
thoughts?
guess that he, although was an outdoorsman, fun guy, really into adventure, was a little nervous around the bears. So when you were out and about, he'd just start kind of inching up to Bradley a little bit for you know, maybe just like, hey Brad, what's up? I'm gonna stand right by you over here.
Okay.
That's a genius
Neither of you got it
answer.
right, but that's a great answer. Bradley, how did he get the nickname Johnny Inches?
So first of all, I would say, Peter, that Johnny is a ladies' man of some renown. So I don't think he's lacking in the hardware department at all. And there were times, look, he was out of his comfort zone, Forrest, and there were times when he was happy we would keep him in the safety sandwich. You know, Alvin Johnson, my Tlingit brother, would go at 12 o'clock, and I would go tail end Charlie at 6, and we'd keep him in the middle. So I think he was happy to be there. But, in fact, he had a reverse problem. We'd see a big bear. We saw some very big bears there. We saw an 8-foot sow. We saw a 10-foot boar, and it was only just across a small waterway, like 2 tennis courts. And he starts going forwards, and the bear had already dropped down flat on the ground. So the bear was like, I don't like this. I'm going to watch you and stuff.
Yeah.
And he was, basically uncertain. And Johnny would actually inch towards the bear to get a reaction. Wow. And I had to break cover and come down and go, Johnny, mate, nothing good. 4 giant paws, huge jaws. You are 5 ways fucked. Please stop doing that. So he definitely wasn't scared. No, he got the title because he was game for anything, and he hosts his own show, The Road Less Traveled, on Travel Channel. And he's fearless. He's up for anything. But he didn't know anything about bears, and he came in at short notice, so he became the designated measurer of things. And everything we saw, however inconsequential, a fecal sample, a scratch on a tree, those were good things. We had just ridiculous, and he'd be just measuring it, and he was so serious. I mean, he lived it. I love, and just remember, we love this guy.
Yeah, no one thinks we're shitting
I'm taking
on
the
him.
piss. He has a master's degree in linguistics, okay?
Right.
He's no idiot.
Right.
But he went, okay, if that's my role, I'm doing that
He's
role.
committed to the cause. Yeah.
And he was...
That's the best.
I call him Johnny Inches to this day.
So he's in my phone
I
as
love
Johnny
it.
Inches.
I
love
love
him.
that story.
I ran into him on the street, BTG. I ran into him on the street in West Hollywood not long ago. And we were just crossing the streets, and I was like, Johnny Inches. And in classic Johnny Inches style, I was like, what do? You don't live over here. What are you doing? He's like, oh, there's like a girl that lives up there. I was like, okay, Johnny Inches, take your inches somewhere else. Get out of my neighborhood.
He lives the dream. I don't know where he's living now. It's somewhere in Central America or somewhere in South America. But last time we spoke, he'd just come back from Ukraine, and we were thinking of doing something on looking for evidence of some of these mutated species out of Pripyat and Chernobyl following the nuclear meltdown. And it was interesting for us as science nerds because really the only species to have that kind of mutation live long enough to be second generation are bats over there. But everything else is many generations down, and they're being irradiated now, but they didn't get that crazy dose early on. But yeah, he just come back, and would you believe he met a beautiful girl there? And he just wherever you want to go, Johnny's there, and he's got a great +1.
Wow.
Yeah.
What a stud.
I just tried to find Johnny Inches, the Instagram account. Doesn't exist, but there is one, Johnny Inches Photography. I really hope it's him.
I don't think that's our boy. I don't think that's our boy. So, Forrest, go ahead, Forrest.
No, I was going to start talking about some stuff that I saw in the news, but what...
I was going to say, you got a new desk this week. What's it made out of?
Yeah, it's a Brazilian teak. It's beautiful.
Okay.
Yeah, smells very nice.
You guys know quite a bit about wood. I'll tell you that much.
Yep.
Yeah, we learned everything we know from Johnny Inches.
So what came across your new Brazilian teak desk this week?
Let's get into it. What's in the news? My favorite thing that I found this week is California, the state that we all reside in, except for WT Willie, state that we love to hate and make fun of and talk about the terrible roads and, the governor and everything else, is doing something good for a change. California is set to build the largest wildlife crossing in the world.
Wow.
This is a good thing, guys. This is a very good thing. And of all places, it's happening right by you, Retep, in Agora Hills, right in the valley.
I saw this. It's big news.
Isn't this great? The bridge is set to be completed in 2023. It's been mostly funded by private donors, which I think's awesome, right? Like the state didn't pay for it, the government didn't pay for it, so a bunch of private people were like, you know what? Let's save the animals. The idea is to reconnect natural habitat so that coyotes and bobcats and mountain lions, et cetera, can cross over giant freeways. I'm guessing the 101. And it's going to be the largest wildlife crossing in the world. And I just think, good for us, good for you, California. Way to set an example.
Well, I mean, I agree, but it is California, so there's a good chance they're going to fuck it up. But it is a great thing.
Well, also, how about the fact that we have, in California, we're 50th out of 50. We have the highest state income tax. We have the highest corporate tax. And yet, individual donors had to pay for them to do one fucking thing.
To build a bridge.
That we like. So, kind of, in my opinion, is fuck off California, but at least they allowed it. So I think it's really cool. Bradley, I am so negative about the state right now. I'm trying to move to Montana. I want to get the fuck out of here.
Look, I get that. I think Montana's gorgeous, and I think we should all move there. Although if you move there, then I will revise that opinion. But
same.
So I actually went to the launch of this in 2018
nice.
at the Arroyo and Foothills Conservancy event at the Descanso Gardens. And I was staggered by the scope of this idea and the cost.
Yeah.
And I couldn't believe it. I remember that this Animal Crossing is part of what will one day be one of the largest wildlife corridors in the world, not just North America, but in the world. And I'm just like, I don't know, I mean, DeLuca's, one of many DeLuca's homes that I've been to is in Hollywood. I don't know if you tried to buy a house in Hollywood lately. It's not cheap. How are you going to... Agora Hills is arguably the cheaper side of the valley than on the other side at Calabasas where, Will Smith and everybody, Justin Bieber live.
Yeah, Bieber.
But it is still incredibly expensive. And the fact that they raised billions of dollars to do this...
Wow.
I'm just so impressed. At the time, I was staggered by it. And I say that, and here's why it touches me personally. I come from Tasmania, one of the great wonders of the world, and we have extraordinary wildlife. We have the highest roadkill
Oh,
rates.
I've never seen anything like it. Sorry.
You've seen it, right? It's a fact.
Finish,
it's a
and
fact.
I'll talk about it.
It's the highest roadkill per mile on the planet. Now, part of that is that it's, even though it looks small compared to Australia, it's still a very large island, and it's largely unpopulated, doesn't have a huge tax base. The terrain is unforgiving, so we do not have a lot of wildlife crossings of any kind. Just now, we're insisting that the government investigate this, and they're finally putting real money into it and trying new technology. But it is horrific. And I'll tell you, one of the bizarre things, it became this really ugly way of measuring the health of wildlife populations, because you used to find dead devils, several per mile. And then I lived in an area where we had the highest population of devils in Tasmania, and over a period of 9 years went to virtually none. So it's an interesting measure of wildlife populations, roadkill. It's more than just dead carcasses on the road, but it is hellacious. So I salute anyone coming up with a big solution.
Absolutely.
Tasmania, this is specific to Tasmania, right? You guys have the worst roadkill.
We have the worst, and it's because we have a lot of nocturnal animals who have no traffic sense, and we have tiny roads.
Sorry.
we have our free, it's like I lived on the Tasman Highway, right? That's a 1-lane highway, and in name only, and people are doing 80 miles an hour, and these animals come out and they get killed. And it's horrific.
So I want to try and
Tasmania could be worse. Sorry, I don't want to dogleg, but to think that Tasmania is worse than New Zealand is
right. New Zealand has no mammals.
It's just
the amount of possums you see on the road.
The invasive stoats.
And granted, they're invasive.
They're ours. They're killing our possums that we gave them.
Right.
Sorry, Forrest.
I was just going to explain. It's Bradley's probably callous to it because he grew up with it, but I've traveled many places around the world and seen incredible wildlife and seen terrible things dead on the road and everything in between. One of the most shocking things that I have ever witnessed in my life is the amount of roadkill on the roads in Tasmania. I mean, someone like myself who's so passionate about animals and hates seeing them suffer or die, I mean, when we landed in Hobart, got in the car to drive to whatever the area we were going to go to was. Within 3 minutes, I made them pull over the car because there was a roadkill, right? I was like, pull over, I want to see what it is, right?
Sure.
After doing that 19 more times over the remaining half mile, the driver was like, can we stop this now? And it was, I'm not kidding, I've never seen anything like it. You're parked at a roadkill, and as you look down, not a very straight highway, you can see 40 or 50 more dead animals looking down the road, just as you stand there parked in a car.
I didn't know this.
I mean, it's the road is literally red with the blood of animals that have been hit, and it's unbelievable. It's wombats and wallabies, and I mean, the list goes on and on and on, and it's just, you've never seen anything quite like it. And one of the reasons, something I love to talk about, as we all know, is, the predators are gone. So the thylacine is gone. The devil's population has been driven to near extinction in many places.
Okay.
One because of people, two because of herpes, blah blah blah. But it's unbelievable. So the populations of all these non-predatory animals are just exploding, and I mean they're. I grew up in Africa, right? I've stood on top of granite koppies looking over the Great Migration, and you see, 100,000 animal, wildebeest and zebra, et cetera, et cetera. When I was in Tasmania, and we went up on a hill at one night, and I used my thermal goggles to look out, it looked like I was on the plains of Africa. I mean, there was just the thermal signatures of the amount, the bioabundance of mammals was unfrickin' believable.
For anybody that wants to envision that, it's I'm assuming it's what was in The Lion King, correct?
Sure. Yeah.
Come on. The Lion King.
It's funny, Forrest is up there, he's holding a lion cub. Look, Tasmania is one of the great wildlife wonders of the world, and if you don't go there, you are wasting your life. It's one of those must-see places, and you're right. It's a place of it's part of Australia in terms of political border, but it is neither Australia nor is it New Zealand. It is its own little thing. We have unique plants and animals you won't find anywhere else in the world, and the great majority of them are nocturnal, and they are very weird and absolutely wondrous. And you're right. I mean, I remember there being this explosion in the number of crows coming to eat all these dead creatures on the side of the road, because the devils, as you say, were diminished in some areas, including where I'm from, by over 90%. Glad to be part of a number of breeding programs, both on the island and on the mainland, where the recovery program, at least in terms of the scientific recovery, in terms of breeding insurance populations, is going very, very well. But we are still not to the bottom of devil facial tumor disease. So it's a big, big deal. But yeah, crazy. And only now we're getting the kind of outcry that the government has to invest in new technology to try to keep animals. Because you can't just put fences up everywhere. That makes it worse.
Right.
You get what we have on the Atlantic forests in Brazil. You get these pockets in between the favelas and the various palatial abodes. You get these pockets of ecosystem that are cut off from others, and so it's an extended death sentence.
Exactly.
So we cannot cut it up. We've got to connect it in a safe way. As a Tasmanian, I am ashamed of our track record of roadkill. I applaud people trying to make a difference, and that's why, unlike you cynical pricks, I salute the engineers and donors who are building the world's largest wildlife bridge in Agura Hills.
We're just cynical about California. BTG, I have a question for you. It comes up from time to time on this podcast. You know those horses that have stripes on them?
Yes, I'm aware of them. Well, not horses, but yes, equids, yeah.
What's the common name for those?
Those black and white ones.
You want me to say zebra, right?
I want you to naturally say whatever you say.
They pull me apart over this. I'm from where the animal is from. I pronounce it correctly, not you.
How do you say it, Forrest?
Zebra, of course.
Well, it's the reason I'm having whiskey and lemon is my throat's gone from doing this. Doing an animated show called Adventure Beast on Netflix. It's an animated show inspired by some of my wildlife adventures. It'll be out in July.
Yes.
I've done a few voiceovers. I did some for Finding Nemo, but that's not who I am.
Oh,
I
that's
spend
cool.
weeks without saying a word, and now I'm talking all day. I'm losing my voice, as you can hear. But they have made me go back and re-record the word zebra as zebra because they don't believe Americans will understand me. I'm thinking, how many other animals sound like that?
Yeah.
Right.
If you hear the word zebra and you don't equate it with zebra, give your fucking head a shake. You really
Why are you watching a wildlife program if you're that?
Right.
I mean, really.
100%.
All right, so I have to jump in because Forrest and I have spent an inordinate amount of time just while drinking late at night talking about the thylacine. We've done 2 expeditions, one in Tasmania, and TV schedule, Bradley. I mean, you have 2 weeks, if you're lucky, to look for something. So we did Tasmania, we did Australia. We've talked about it a huge amount on this podcast. A disproportionate amount of our listeners are Australian.
It's true. Yeah.
As a Tassie, and I'm sure someone who's very interested, is the thylacine extinct, or is there a small pocket somewhere in the world where it's alive?
This is from the mouth of a biologist from Tasmania. This is important.
So I would say there's what I believe and there's what I want to believe. What I want to believe is that there is a small, remote population that has just enough size to be able to maintain itself. I would say that it's functionally extinct, and that we haven't seen evidence of one, as you know, since 1936. We know they used to be on the mainland. I know in a previous episode you talked about how the dingo outcompeted the slower-moving thylacine. You could argue that the thylacine was to the dingo what the dire wolf was to the grey wolf.
Exactly.
It's a bigger, more powerful animal, but it's slow and it's predominantly a carrion eater.
Right.
So, I don't think it's likely that there is a viable population anywhere. All the evidence that I've seen, though tantalizing, has never convinced me. Like you guys, I remember on that bear show, I was up there 3 or 4 weeks ahead of everybody, just putting out camera traps and bringing them every 3 days because the bears rip them off the trees and put them back out. So we know what camera trap footage looks like. Yeah. So when I can see a tree and a wallaby incredibly clearly down to the finest follicle, and they go, that smudge is a thylacine, I'm not buying it.
So I'm with you there. Yeah.
All the new footage, I'm calling bullshit. But I
Agreed.
hope that there's out there. Now, the idea of what they're calling the moon tiger up there in Cape York, that's an exciting thing as
Right.
well. But I've spent a lot of time up there and never seen any evidence of it either. But sort of the program that you were involved with, I know you got in touch with the team from Cooktown University.
Correct.
They have got more camera traps out there than any other program I've ever seen.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll see. But
And there's two sides to that coin, right, Bradley? Not to interrupt
Yeah.
you, but
Right.
what spurred this massive, and I'm not a conspiracy nut, I don't believe in cryptids or anything else, but isn't it interesting that all of a sudden James Cook University put in so much resources to put out this massive grid pattern of camera trapping, right? I'm not saying it's not important work, and I'm not saying that they're not going to get incredibly valuable data, but I do find it very interesting that there was this surge in curiosity that led to this massive amount of camera trapping.
Right, but I have some inside information because I spoke to the head of the program. I ran into him in Malaysia, and I asked him what was going on. We spoke on the phone.
Sure.
And we both happened, truly by coincidence, to be in Kuala Lumpur at the same time. Mm-hmm. And the truth of it is this. The aim of their program is not to find the moon tiger.
Right.
That is an ancillary aim. It's to document the collapse of small mammals in that ecosystem.
That's what they told us as well when we were there, yeah.
So that number of traps for small mammals, that makes sense. You want to find a small anything, and obviously little giants, that's what we did a lot of. We've got camera traps up the wazoo constantly in order to just get a little bit of movement.
Right.
And then the next day we recalibrate all the cameras and hope to get a clean shot. And then the third day we put out the traps and hope to capture one and film it. Mm-hmm. That's how we do it. So when you say small mammals, you go camera traps, you've got to have them exponentially large number of them.
Right.
And they very cleverly use the moon tiger story and a couple of quote eyewitnesses close quote
Right.
to get interest and hopefully generate funding. So I don't think that was ever their aim. But I would say to you this: if there is a collapse in small mammals, does that tell you of an abundance of predators? I don't. I think it tells you that there are. It's the exact opposite. In the same way that the mega carnivores died off when the megafauna had gone, so too these smaller predators disappear when the small prey go.
Exactly right. No, exactly. It's the opposite of what people would think. Let me ask you this, Bradley. The number one place on my bucket list. I've planned 3 different expeditions there, all that have been canceled. One by which you may remember the largest cyclone that ever hit, which hit Cairns. I was there when that happened and got it. I was on the last plane out. We lost our car and everything. But and the very next day, before I got evacuated, I think it was 3 days prior to when we were supposed to go to Papua New Guinea. Have you been? How was it? You haven't been.
I have not been. I've come close. I went. I've traveled up the islands that historically connect to Australia with PNG. So I've done that, but I haven't gone there. I'm actually looking to plan a trip there down the road. I really want to get close to some of these poison birds. Mm-hmm. You've seen them. You're the ones that have the same toxin on their wings as you often see in various reptiles and stuff. I'm very excited about seeing the poison birds. I haven't. Again, like you, got friends who've been there, have planned it. One of my best friends in when I was in the army, his brother was a photojournalist who was murdered there and his body not recovered by the group that's called the Rascals, which sounds like a really friendly Wes Anderson.
It does. It sounds like they're a good time.
A comical movie title.
No, they're monsters. They're these roving gangs that, in some cases, do carry bows and arrows and machetes, but now, for various reasons, are armed with Vietnam-era military hardware. And it's really sad. So one of the guys I went through the Royal Military College with, which is like your West Point, is a guy called Belden Nama, and he got into Special Forces in New Guinea. Very colorful history. Look it up on Wikipedia. And now he's a minister in the government. Again, very colorful fellow. But he is someone that I've connected with because of our shared past. And for all my supposed hard man adventuring and various qualifications, I would not go to Papua New Guinea unless I had the protection of an authority figure like that. That didn't put a target on my back.
It's very dangerous. I mean, it's Bradley. It's something we've never talked about because I always talk about the fauna there and how exciting it is biologically speaking. It is. I too know someone who was murdered there, through someone else, but same sort of story. And I mean, it's just the amount of violence that takes place within the the gangs and the communities between each other is unbelievable. I mean, it's an extremely dangerous place.
Oh, it is. And what you have to remember, and this is what makes it exciting both from a adventurous point of view and travel point of view, as well as from a biological point of view, is that you remember back in the day we started coining the phrase islands and highlands as hotspots for conservation.
Of course.
And Papua New Guinea was emblematic of that because the highlands are so high,
right,
they effectively become islands.
Right.
And so
yeah,
a mountain is its own little island, its own little ecosystem of plants and animals. So it's right at the top of my wish list too. But as a husband and a father, I did my time, and now I have a general aversion to being shot at. So
why do you live in LA then, dude? What are you doing? Let's all go to Montana. We can just be neighbors. It'll be great. We'll each have our own ranch.
Yeah,
we'll have our own lake. Yeah, let's go.
I'm buying into that. Anyway, I'm going to get there too. Whoever gets there first, give the other guy some tips.
100%.
Because I will go there. I'll share my contact with you, and let's get there. But I want to do it safely, and I've spent a lot of time not dying. I want to maintain that.
There you go, smart. And likewise,
I would love to go. I think the two of you guys. I mean, Retep and I will go. I'll help produce it. We'll film it.
Not to Papua New Guinea, right?
I think we all go.
No. I'm out.
And look for a thylacine there.
That was the circle back. But Retep, you're only coming as the human sacrifice, right? When the rascals do capture us, you're obviously the guy that we hand over and continue.
Man, he survived the fucking rhinoceros attack.
He did.
BTG.
I don't see why we have to go to PNG to sacrifice that. I mean, we all got time on our hands.
Listen, if we go to Montana and we're just shooting at each other, I'll happily do the duel if you guys want.
We're going to be so thrilled when we all sell our properties in LA and then realize what we can get in Montana.
Right.
That we're not going to even need guns, man.
No?
I gotta tell you, in terms of a sexy storyline though, and PNG is right on the edge of it. To me, the most unexplored, unplumbed riches of the natural world are on the Wallace Line. So separating Asia from Australasia.
Yeah.
I mean, that is the sexiest place on the planet, Wallacea. And if we're the guys to do it, that's great. But someone's got to go there, spend some real time on the ground, and not just the ground, in the trees, in the water. The Wallace Line, Wallacea. Yeah. Wallacea is the new Atlantis. That's where we got. That's where we got to go.
I know nothing about this.
Insular endemism there is unbelievable. Like the amount of you go 5 miles from one island to the next, and it's completely different species. I mean, it's just mind blowing.
Wait, can you set this up a bit better for us? Because I've actually never heard of this.
Well, it's kind of an archaic term because it's based on one of the Imperial European explorers, but basically you have this Wallace Line. So let me phrase it another way.
Sure.
You know what Thrace is, right? You know that the bridge between Asia and Europe, which ostensibly straddled by Turkey, and you cross the Dardanelles and suddenly you're in Europe or in Asia or whatever. That is what the Wallace Line is ecologically. So making the bridge, the zoological bridge from Asia to Australasia is the Wallace Line. And you have this extraordinary fusion of the two different continents and the two different regions and all this stuff that doesn't exist in either. Right. So it's this embarrassment of riches.
No shit.
It's like a diamond mine and a gold mine in the one place. And the reason no one goes there is there are very few amenities. It's largely lawless, and it's very difficult to get from one place to another. The resources are poor. Yeah. That's exactly where people like us should be going.
Agreed.
It's interesting to hear things like that as a guy who lives in LA. Like, people don't realize how difficult it is to get around places and logistically do things that you guys do. That's just super interesting.
So I looked at doing an expedition through there, and the easiest way to get there, and Bradley, tell me if you found something different, is to get to Raja Ampat in Indonesia, and then take a boat from there basically south, weaving through all the islands and et cetera, et cetera. And even that, I mean, to get to Raja Ampat, just to get there, this is before you get a boat that's capable of you living on it for a month and traveling without any contact or resources, is like 70 hours. Right, you fly like 4 different flights, then you get on a boat, then you get to Raja Ampat, where you then charter another boat that comes from likely Australia to it's just like it's a nightmare. It is a nightmare.
This sounds awesome, by the way. We're definitely doing this.
Yeah, and you got to go heavy because you're in one of the most pirate-infested waters on the planet.
The most, I think.
Yeah, that's why we need a guy who used to be in the Tasmanian Special Forces to organize a crew of stout gentlemen and females.
A guy who
are handy
cut
with
his
the steel,
underwear
bro.
off and met his wife.
I'm just saying it's not a small undertaking. You want at least 3 boats to have backup to backup to backup, and you got to have an armed component. And look, we do that in Alaska all the time. You've been there, Patrick. You know, I choose personally not to carry a gun, but that's for practical reasons. While I'm making notes and taking photos, I'm as likely to shoot one of my nuts off as I am to actually, slow down a 2,000-pound boar, because I'm just, So I have a Tlingit brother who also happens to be a former airborne U.S. Army sniper.
Right.
I'm covered. I'm good. So I will do it in the context of protecting myself from dangerous wildlife. Obviously, it would be devastating to me if we actually had to shoot a bear. I would consider that a massive personal and professional failing.
Yeah.
But now we're talking about defending yourself from lawless people. And however modest our budget is, because let's be honest, wildlife television is the bottom of the barrel in terms of budgets on mainstream American television. We are effectively billionaires compared to the people that are living out there. So we've got a big target. So you really have to share the wealth, build the relationship, and get that cultural protection as well as arming yourself. So it's not a small undertaking.
No,
someone's got to go in there early and build those relationships, and I choose Peter.
Yeah, I choose Peter.
Listen,
I think that's smart, man.
Yeah.
He's charming. Look at those blue eyes.
Yeah, they'll love that, and they'll love my crass Chicago accent and constant swearing. They'll love all that.
As long as you just don't crap on about Chicago pizzas, you'll probably do okay.
Like, what the fuck is that?
I remember when I was in Angoon. I think I told you this, DeLuca.
Yeah.
When I was in Angoon, the first season I was there, no one spoke to me. No one spoke to me.
Right.
It wasn't until the second season. They found out about my military background, and there are people who believe that every young man and woman should serve in the military.
Right.
And suddenly I got that cultural respect, and we had the conversation. But by the time you went there, we'd been there for 4 or 5 years, and that relationship, I was adopted into the Deshitan clan. We had access. That's the kind of thing you have to do. Except here, the danger stakes are not giant bears; they're pirates with assault rifles.
Fucking fantastic.
Which scares me much more. I mean, I would much rather deal with the wildlife. It's predictable, versus the people.
Well, so Bradley, I don't know if how many episodes of Extinct or Alive you've watched. I assume all of them. Otherwise, fuck
twice.
off. Yeah, thank you. But so there was season 2. Forrest had an idea that he really wanted to go to this particular part of the Amazon to look for a particular caiman.
Rio Apiporus caiman.
Yeah, the Rio Apiporus caiman. And so we started researching it, and Steven the Rock Mail, who's our line producer who handles getting people in and out of places, he's fucking great. He wears Hawaiian shirts every day. He immediately keyed in on the fact that most of the groups of Westerners that had recently been in there had been kidnapped and held for ransom. And so, I tell Forrest, this is the situation. And, then over the course of 6 to 8 months, this is what we did. We started making contacts with people, meeting locals who would then go in. And, our dollar goes a long way in these areas. But we had to ultimately make the call to not send a full crew, right? It was just going to be Forrest and 2 other guys. And they went in and they were able to get the access, and most of that was by being all of the things that happened in advance, playing nice with the people that
the FARC rebels
could kill you.
It was FARC rebel controlled. The whole part of that jungle was controlled by cocaine and the FARC rebels, and they couldn't have been nicer. It took a little coaxing, but they couldn't have been nicer people to deal with at the end of the day.
Shit, I think we gotta go. We gotta go, guys. That's something. Oh, so Bradley, I know you mentioned being, father and a husband now. Let's say that we were able to organize some sort of expedition there. There was some contacts made. You felt good about the local contacts. Is that something you would still do, to go to this place?
Yeah,
to go to the Wallace
he would.
Lines?
I know what Bradley's like. He would. I don't care how much he nods his head. He'd go. I know the type because I am the type.
I'm on that plane. Yeah, I don't want to go. I have to go.
Yeah.
You know. So it's a compulsion. No, that is, we all of us have our wish lists and certain things, and I think we want to see before we die, and we're lucky enough to have been to and seen many of them. And there's only a couple that really stand out for me. And one of the animals I want to see that I've never seen is not actually that rare. It's a ribbon seal, And I've spent a lot of time in the Bering Sea, and I've never seen one. Mm-hmm. I really want to see one. And the other is Wallacea, the Wallace Line. The Wallace Line calls me day and night. So
interesting.
Yeah, if we can reduce some of the liabilities to an acceptable degree, my wife knows who she married.
Yeah. Well, Bradley, this has been unbelievably awesome having you on here. It's so nice to hear your stories and your perspective. Let's talk about something pretty exciting going on, something that is sweeping the nation of Australia, your film.
And the U.S., baby.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, and the U.S., of course, yes.
Thank you for that truly natural sounding segue. And I just want to, it's just, you know what, thank you. And each of us, in the entertainment industry, to whatever degree that we participate, appreciates how hard it is to make anything. Mm-hmm. It doesn't matter what it is. And if you're at home watching this or listening to this and you have a dream of creating a book or a radio show or a podcast or a TV show or a movie, just stick at it, because you just got to do that. And I'm very lucky. When I left the military, I was young enough to start another career. I had a successful career in publishing. I still do. But only when I came here to Los Angeles, and again, against my will, I just fell in love, and this is where the woman of my dreams happened to be, so I stayed here, realized that there was all these opportunities, and I decided to fall in love with the things that could only happen here.
Sure.
Here's a strange side. Did you know how I got onto late night television, how that happened?
No idea.
This is so...
You sucked Jay Leno's dick?
That was later.
That was after, dude.
Come on.
So what actually happened was, how do I even get into this? It was a strange... I wasn't looking for any of this, okay? I was going to write my books and do my wildlife stuff, and I was fine with that.
Yep.
And then Chelsea Handler had the most successful show on E, which was the Chelsea Lately show.
Yeah.
And she had a number of wildlife experts on, some of whom we know are, let's describe them as colorful characters. And she was dating a hunky guy that was on a show, and they broke up. And so she said, so the producer said, look, we're moving to the Tonight Show stage, because Conan O'Brien just lost the Tonight Show, had this beautiful new stage built at Universal down there. And they said, let's get someone more credible with more experience. And so they called Betty White. And I knew Betty White through conservation circles, because this is LA. That's how stuff happens. How stupid
that
it is.
Is fucking crazy, by the way. That's bizarre.
So Betty White calls LA Zoo, and Mike D, rest in peace. I don't know if you can see it. It's a snake hook back there. He bequeathed me when he passed away. But he's like, oh, BTG's in town. Get him. So that was my interview. Huh. So now, guy with no intention to be on television goes over there, and they tell me this story. And here's what they basically said. They basically said, we want someone with more experience, who has great information, who Chelsea Handler doesn't want to fuck. And I'm like,
nice.
And I'm like, thank you. Anyway, but one thing led to another, and I realized these opportunities existed, so I started looking for ways to bring my books into it. So I wrote a book called Penguin Bloom. It's about my 27th, 28th book. It's a beautiful, true story about a family in Australia who suffered a terrible tragedy when a wife and mother fell from a 2-story building while on holiday in Thailand and shattered her spine, exploded both of her lungs, crushed her skull and her brain, and should have died. And miraculously didn't, but ended up paralyzed from the chest down, which is called a KL1, and only use of her arms and neck and head. So it was just this terrible story, and she sunk into a deep depression. And then just when she just constantly saw suicide, I don't mean like occasionally, I mean literally every hour of the day, she was planning how and when was the appropriate time to kill herself so that it wasn't so soon that it damaged her children, but not so late that her husband didn't have a chance of finding a wife again. I mean, that's how.
Jeez, that's heavy.
That's how far she had fallen emotionally.
Yeah.
And then she ended up, one of her sons rescued a magpie chick that had fallen out of its nest and injured itself and had brought it home. And this woman used to be a neurosurgical nurse. And that instinct kicked in and she started caring for the bird, and in caring for the bird, she discovered her sense of self again and ended up going on to do some quite wonderful things, including she was a champion kayaker, and now she's the current 2-time adaptive world surfing champion.
Wow.
Anyway, the book, I have the American edition here. It's called Penguin the Magpie in America as opposed to Penguin Bloom. But the movie's called Penguin Bloom, and 6 years I spent writing that book, and then the sequel, which is Sam Bloom, Heartache and Birdsong, and then turning into a movie. We're very lucky. When we set out, we're very focused on getting the right people, and I said, Naomi Watts is the only actress I want to play Sam because she has that physicality, and Sam was a great athlete, and Naomi Watts is a great athlete and a great emotional athlete. And when she signed on, it all came together. Reese Witherspoon, a whole bunch of people produced it.
Wow.
Glenn and Ivan directed it. And it's the #1 movie in Australia right now. And it's now on Netflix in 130 countries. And in fact, we sold every single territory. So by the end of this year, every country in the world will have Penguin Bloom. Naomi's getting some Oscar love already. So I just feel really lucky. I'm feeling really lucky.
I mean,
is there anything you can't do? Seriously, is there anything you cannot do? Like, can you name something that you can't do?
He can't.
I don't think I could not go on Dancing on the Stars without killing somebody.
Oh, there you go.
I'd love to see you on Dancing with the Stars, though.
Could you,
Forrest, he's also a real chump in the sack. I mean,
how do you know?
I've watched. But no, dude. So Bradley, I mean, since I met you, you had already written the book, but the movie process was happening, and it takes so goddamn long, so many years. But the reality is, more people will see this movie on Netflix and learn the story that way, probably than have read the book. Obviously, it's done. The book's done well.
I wish it wasn't so, because I make a lot more money off the book. But
of course.
No, you're right, and the thing about the book, if you get a chance to read it, it's a very beautiful, poetic, but also hard hitting. We made the decision very early on to honor Sam and not to allow anyone to sugarcoat the nature of her injuries and disabilities to make able-bodied readers feel comfortable. And that goes back to experience I had when I was a soldier. And one of our elite soldiers snapped his neck getting out of the aircraft. The aircraft tilted, his static line hooked around his neck, and he broke his neck as he exited the aircraft. And he's a tetraplegic, a quadriplegic. And I was a brand new lieutenant at the time, and I would be required as duty officer to visit him when I was on duty. Excuse me. And he was in the same hospital that Sam Bloom, the subject of my books and movie, was in 13 years later.
Wow.
And he didn't want to talk to me. Some rookie officer he didn't know, and it was a difficult time. And he came back to the regiment for a very special military parade we have on April 24th, which is called Kapyong Day. It's the anniversary of Kapyong during the Korean War in 1951. And all his friends were there, and very few of them wanted to speak with him because they didn't know what to say.
Yeah.
And they're embarrassed, but also because he became a symbol, a physical symbol of the fears that haunted them, that it could have been them. And it could have been any of us.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking, we've got to find a way to talk about these injuries, because 500,000 young men, particularly, and women every year will suffer a spinal cord injury. And so one of the things I'm proud of is that we've donated money from the books, and the film goes into the leading spinal cord injury researchers in every country that we're published. And that includes the US. We're with the Christopher and Dana Reeve Foundation. And I mean, think about it. It's just nerves that have to be somehow reattached. But we haven't worked it out because the spinal cord has an insulating material to prevent, for want of a better term, nerve signal leakage. And so it's almost self-sealing. But we have got the talent to solve this, and I'm glad that Penguin Bloom not only is a beautiful, uplifting story and a tearjerker. We'll need a few tissues. There'll be a lot of ugly man crying. I'm not ashamed of that. It's a beautiful story, and it's hopefully making a difference, and I'm very proud of it.
That's awesome, dude. Congratulations. What a shitload of work went into something theoretically as simple as something that you click on and distract yourself from negative news for 2 hours. But when millions of people do that, what a beautiful thing.
That's amazing. I mean, and to have
you.
such an impactful message behind it, and the kind of research that it's donating towards. It's amazing, man. Congratulations, Bradley. That's phenomenal. I'm going to watch it tonight. I'm not just saying that.
Oh, yeah.
Go
Christina and I are going to watch it tonight. So from Bradley's very touching story, and I don't mean that in any jokey way, Bradley, let me segue to something purely fucking ridiculous that we like to do on this podcast.
Oh, yes, of course.
Can I get a drum roll for us?
I almost forgot.
It's time.
Battle Royale.
So this is the Battle Royale. It's our Brosner's favorite segment, Bradley. We're going to have you in on this. We would never not have you in.
It only takes
probably
3.5 hours. Are you down?
I've still got a third to go. I'm good.
All right.
Yeah, cheers.
By the way, what's everyone drinking tonight? Chardonnay for Papa P. What do you guys have?
Yep.
Rolling Rock for...
There you go. Classy.
Lagavulin.
Wow.
When you
beautiful.
make Netflix movies, you drink strange, exotic scotch.
Yeah, that's
Or
snazzy.
whiskey.
I'm drinking
Prerequisite.
African water, aka gin and tonic, as I usually
Nice.
regular
Is that what
water.
it's called? I like that.
So, Bradley, here's what we do. Every week we do this. The Brosners love it. They then vote on iTunes or the YouTube and let us know who wins. So,
Okay. Oh, I like this.
I'm going to throw out a
really
scenario. And what we're going to do is have a little draft as Bradley smokes his corncob pipe for those only listening and not watching, which is the vast majority of you. So, here's the scenario. You have to build, we're going classic because we have a special guest, a good friend, an
Sure,
old
makes
friend.
sense.
I want to go classic. We're
Makes sense.
fighting. We are
Standard battle.
fighting.
Thank God.
Yeah, got it.
All right.
Got it.
Episodes.
Game of Thrones style. Each of us are going to build a battalion.
Oh, battalion.
You get,
okay.
you get 50 each of these animals. And it's
Okay.
going to be, we're just in four corners, an all-out battle.
Oh, my God.
And it's three picks, correct?
3 picks, snake
Got
draft.
it.
You have to pick
Yep.
Okay.
1 mammal,
Okay.
1 reptile, and 1 bird. Okay? Think about it. Do you want to pick a bird that's got big talons but can't fly? Or do you want to just pick a bird that can fly? I don't know. They have to be extant. You can't pick a Haast eagle, Bradley. I know you were going to do that.
I was going to go with a Haast eagle.
You son of a bitch. So they have to be extant. 1 mammal, 1 reptile, 1 bird. You get 50 of each.
Okay.
And we're going to fight till death.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, I like that.
Last man
I like
standing.
that.
Last man
Yep.
standing. I don't want to put Bradley on the spot since it's his first time. I'm going to put Forrest on the spot.
Yeah, break me in.
You
Break me in.
get, you get the
please.
first pick.
Yeah, I'll play along.
Okay.
So, we've got 50 of each. What I want, God, I gotta take something off the table here. That's the smart play.
That's the thing.
Yeah.
You got to take shit off the table in this game.
Yeah,
Bradley.
I gotta take something off the table. So here's what I'm gonna do. 50.
Well, hang on. Can I ask a question first?
Yes, of course.
What is the terrain upon which we're fighting?
Good question.
It's basically, you know what a football field looks like?
I do.
Imagine 4 of those together. So it's a dome. Obviously, people are watching. They've paid good money for this.
Flat
Oh,
terrain.
it's a pay-per-view situation. I
Controlled.
Get
It's a
Yeah.
controlled
Okay.
environment, it sounds
It's
like.
controlled environment,
Got
flat, even terrain, grassy, grassy, as Forrest would say. So yeah, no mountains, no ice, no snow.
you. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Got
yeah,
it.
yeah, yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
go ahead.
All right,
70
I'm on the
degrees,
spot.
75
I'm going to
degrees.
lead. I'm going to take something that I think is kind of obvious off the table early. Give myself a little leg up. You know, we've talked about this many times on air. In my opinion, there is one mammal that reigns supreme over all other mammals when it comes to fighting abilities. Not necessarily size, not necessarily strength, not necessarily speed. But I'm going to go lowland gorillas straight off the table, 50 of them on my team right out of the gate.
Yeah, that's smart. They're going to lead the charge, aren't they? You son of a bitch.
I mean, just tell me that. Yeah, come on.
So here's the thing. I quit. Can I give up and take my animals and go start a private preserve? Because I'm scared of that. I don't want 50 of those.
Yeah,
And which
50 of them.
which lowland are you going with, Eastern or Western?
Well, the Eastern are slightly bigger, I believe. But however, they have an
slightly
easier. They have a less harsh temperament, is my understanding. So it's kind of a trade-off. But we'll go with Eastern lowland gorillas.
Okay.
All right.
Now I have to
I like
combat that.
Big, aggressive, and the smallest penises relative to size of any primate. Good call.
Well, I try and pick things that are similar, like so that we can understand each other.
All right,
I
Retep,
respect
since you don't understand snake drafts, you can't be on the end, so why don't you go next?
That's fine. Also, you didn't mention it was a snake draft at the beginning. My first pick is, and this is big in the news right now, a Army general in the U.S. just came out and said that the future is going to be devastated by swarms of drones, and it's going to be devastating. So I will have a bird that flies, obviously, and it will be the golden eagle. 50 golden eagles.
Okay.
Any
We're going with
thoughts
a lot
on?
of power early.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's
50 golden eagles.
Oh, by the way, Bradley, it's assumed that these are all trained to do your bidding.
Right.
Sure, they attack.
right,
They attack. That's a very good call. I mean, you're looking at a talon crushing power then of up to what is it, like 400 psi?
That's
pretty
something
impressive.
insane. I don't know, but yeah, I mean, there is no better skyborn predator than the golden eagle.
Thank you.
No. By the way, I'm very similar to Johnny Inches on this podcast, Bradley. I look up Bite Force PSI constantly, so I love that your head just went there. All right, Bradley, you're next. Third pick. So Forrest has the gorilla. He's got some eagles. You need a mammal, a bird, and a reptile. What do you got?
I'm going to take a different direction. With the bird, I respect the airborne assault, but there's a certain level of armature that doesn't matter to, and I'm going to go with that for my bird. I'm going to take the southern double-wattled cassowary.
Cassowary, smart. It's a good pick.
It's
good pick.
the most dangerous bird in the world. It's
is.
the only bird. It's the only bird with a real body count. I'm the governor of Taronga Zoo in Australia, and we've only had 2 fatalities in the 105-year history of the zoo. One was a big cat. One was a cassowary. When I was a soldier, we would do jungle warfare training at a school in Tully, which is the wettest place in Australia. And even though it was only an exercise, we would carry all these blank ammunition, and then we would have 1 magazine of live rounds, not for the crocodiles,
Wow.
for the cassowaries.
Wow. Okay.
Good
All right.
pick. I mean, those...
I feel like that's a really impressive ground game, and I'm specifically getting females, which are bigger and more aggressive. So I think we're in for a good time.
Yeah. Wow.
Sure.
Jeez.
So I'm scared at this point.
You should be.
I'm on the end here, so I get 2 picks. So, yeah, I'm pretty fucking scared because I see those gorillas. I see 50 cassowaries. That's 100 cassowary feet that are coming at me.
That's correct. Good math.
And probably up to 200 feathers. I'm sure they have at least 2 each. So, so I'm going to go with just pure size. And the way that I'm going to train this animal is that it's also going to use noise to its advantage to distract and confuse your feeble-minded cassowaries, Bradley, because I mostly just want to beat you. So I'm going to go with 50 African elephants.
Ooh,
it's a good pick.
Interesting call.
Once they start stampeding, the sound of the rumble alone is going to confuse your animals. They're going to think it's an earthquake. They're just going to be mortified. They have tusks. They can swing the... Look at that. You can't.
Yeah.
You're fucked. All right, so I've already won with that pick. So my next pick, this is the confusing one, which is the reptile. Because I'm trying to think of a reptile that can move quickly. I know what I'm going to do. Instead of having them move quickly, I'm going to take 50 of my next choice, which is my reptile, and I'm going to have them fan out around me and just protect me. So they're not on the offensive. The elephants are doing some of that.
Okay.
Nile croc.
Wow.
Nile croc. What? How are you going to penetrate my circle of mouth facing out Nile crocs? Oh, you somehow got through? Watch out for the tail, cunts.
I'll tell you how. I'll tell you how when it's my pick.
Okay. All right. So I've got African elephants and 50 of those watching over Papa P.
You've got to round out the savannah. Your third pick has to be from southern Africa. There is no other option at this point.
Yeah.
Wait for my bird. All right. So Peter, you're up. What do you want to add to, what'd you pick, octopus?
By the way, no, sorry about that. I could not hold it anymore. I had to take a Papa PP. So,
all right.
Sorry about
What do you
that.
wanna
I
add?
apologize. I heard everything. I'm up to snuff. And oh man, I got a good one for you. I'm taking another reptile off the table here because this is obviously the hardest one to pick after Papa P takes crocodile off the table.
Wait, sorry, I fucked up. Bradley's up.
Oh,
That's my fault.
Yeah, that's what I
my
thought.
fault.
I was like, wait a minute.
oh my
So-
God! You fuck up the snake draft.
So I just take one. I don't choose more. I just choose
Right,
like
only the
now,
people
a
on the
reptile
ends take one. Yeah, you
Listen,
get one
Bradley,
more pick on
these
the way
guys
back.
are fucking real smug about the way a snake draft works. I fuck it up every time, and I constantly get shit on about it. Just whatever they say.
Sorry,
they
so
can
one
fuck
pick,
right.
Bradley. You already have your bird. You have 50 cassowaries. You got a reptile and a mammal.
I have a strategy that I'll reveal at the end.
Smart.
Good.
So I'm just gonna, but you won't see it now, but you will see it soon, and you'll regret it. And
Love this.
so
that.
I already have the most dangerous bird in the world.
You do?
I'm now going to take the most aggressive snake in the world, and
Taking my
that's
pick.
that's the Eastern Taipan, and I love these guys because. First of all, the venom is not quite as deadly as the inland taipan or the fierce snake, but it's so close it doesn't matter. We're talking an LD50 at over 3 million. So welcome to the NFL of snakes.
I had one slither over my neck, Bradley. True story.
That's not good. I
Hated that.
I remember doing an operation in northern Queensland, and we had to clean our gear at a trailer park, and they took all our weapons off us: my handgun, my assault rifle, my knives, everything, grenades, gone. Went and got showered, come out of the shower, and there's this Eastern Taipan coming through these trailers, and this idiot picks up a cavity brick and throws it at it, which it just ducks, and then attacks us, and we're screaming like little girls.
Yeah.
Yeah, of
Because what are
course.
you going to do? Take out my towel and flick it with my phallus on my towel? I don't know what I'm going to do. I didn't have 14 and a half inches of chameleon dong.
Not quite.
It was a desperate time. I'm taking Eastern Taipan because it's hyper aggressive and it will attack everything again and again, and everything it attacks will be dead before the end of the pay-per-view.
Smart.
Okay.
Oh, by the
true.
way, it
That's a
will
good
also
pick.
blend in nicely with the. Because what I forgot to mention was that we're playing in Green Bay, and so the turf is sort of that. The grass is that color, so that's smart.
Nice, that bright green, nice.
You got lucky. All right, Peter, you're up.
Peter,
You've had
you're
some
up.
time to think.
Okay, so I'm debating between two different reptiles. Luckily, Bradley didn't pick mine, but he made a very solid strategic decision on going with a highly aggressive venomous snake. And I'm wondering if, okay, all right, I'm going to go with my original pick, and I'm going with a reticulated python. They get up to 350 pounds. They might not be venomous, however, they are large, and there will be 50 of them swarming every other animal on the ground while dealing with my golden eagles so far.
We
That's
understand that you Googled snake and saw a python picture.
No, I
and
was
think
gonna
that it's
pick.
very
I was
scary.
gonna
We
pick
get
a
it.
python, but no matter what, I just didn't know the specific kind. Well, and then when he said that, I was gonna pick something else, but I was like, no, I'm sticking with the original.
Okay. Okay.
Forrest, you're up for
I'm
two.
up for two.
You
I'm
only
up
got
for
two more,
two.
sir.
Well, man, it's tough. You know, it's tough. There's obvious picks. There's Komodo dragons out there that you think are tough. They're not. You know, there's bad picks like picking a python in a fight. I mean, that's just a bad idea.
It's a banana to a knife fight, really. It's
Yeah, the best eagle's been taken off the table. It's getting down to the wire here. So here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna approach with bird first. Now you could go, I want a harpy eagle or something like that, but you've already got the golden eagle, Peter. So that's locked up in the big, scary bird assault. So I'm gonna go for speed. You know, I'm gonna take the peregrine falcon. It's
Smart.
not the biggest, it's not the meanest, but you better believe it's the fastest. And if it's coming at you, that's like a bullet with talons, right? So I'm going to go peregrine.
And by the way, they're doing whatever you ask them to do because you're
Right.
telepathically communicating. So that's smart, man.
Yeah.
Boom.
Right,
Oh,
it's
that's- wow,
a
that's how
speed
it works.
play.
I like that.
It's a
I
speed
like
play.
that.
I think I can take out all of Peter's golden eagles with my peregrine falcons based on speed alone.
Sure.
Well, I mean,
There'll
you
still
could.
be problems.
Good.
There will still be problems.
especially
but-
when
Yeah,
you're dealing
yeah,
with
Peter
the other
lost,
two
so, yeah.
people's birds as well.
Right.
But
well,
anyways,
hey, let's see what happens here.
we'll see.
Now, my final pick, and this is one that's you're not going to expect it. You're not going to expect it.
Okay.
You're thinking taipan. You're thinking black mamba. You're thinking crocodile. No. I'm going
Tiny
for a
lizard.
snake. No. I'm going for a snake that's subtle in its damage. right? The African mole snake, also known as the stiletto snake,
I love
has
the mole
fangs
snake.
that stick out either side of their mouth. Right? Now, when a taipan bites you, it's great. You know, it comes up, it bites you. That sucks.
Yeah,
Don't
it's
get
great.
me wrong.
It's great.
Yeah. He's got one direction, though. This is the hammerhead of the snake world, right? The stiletto snake can just roll through there just
he
going
is.
left and right, fangs on either side, super aggressive. By the way, tiny little snake. It's about this big. Tiny little thing. You're never going to see it. It's just going to be roaming around in the 1-inch grass. You're not even going to know it's there. Before you know it, everybody's limbs are going to be rotting off. The cassowary, forget about it. He's got one leg. You know, Patrick's elephants, they're dead. They don't even know what's happening to them. And these tiny little stiletto snakes with their funny little fangs are just killing everybody on the ground.
My
So
golden
you're-
eagles will be destroying those snakes. They'll all be eaten within 10 minutes.
You're wagering on necrosis to win this?
It's a slow play.
I love how he said subtle. It's like, no, this is an all-out battle.
How long is this event? I'm figuring like 2 hours max.
Well, what I'm hoping
Until
is
everyone's
that
dead, except me.
they're all they're in crippling pain, lying on the ground, dying. You know, I'm not saying that they're going to drop dead like they will from the taipan bite.
Sure.
But when my stiletto snake comes over and just in the side of your elephant foot, then my lowland gorilla just starts hammer fisting your chest. It's all over for you. You're done. You're done. It's like getting kicked in the balls.
It sounds exciting, but I gotta tell you, in terms of venom, it's just, I mean, there's the taipan, and then there's a condom with a face drawn on it, which is what you've chosen.
He truly understands the spirit of the Battle Royale.
He does.
This
Yeah,
is
he
first
really
time.
does.
All
Yeah,
right,
this is
Peter,
good. This is
why
good.
don't you add to your already dead crew of 100 animals? What do you have?
Yeah, right. My golden eagles and my fucking pythons will be destroying
slow-moving.
everybody.
Very slow.
And even
Yeah.
if they're not, their 350-pound bodies that are all over the field will be tripping and distracting the cassowaries and everybody else who's running around out there.
So what do you want to add? You have a
Distracting them.
mammal left.
Yeah, I
What are
know.
you gonna
I
pick?
know what
Do you
I
want
got
to pick a
left.
lemur?
No, I'm not going to pick a lemur. Fucking idiot.
What about an oven mitt?
I'm going with a polar bear. 50 polar bears. 1,200
Shit.
pounds. Fucking vicious. And let me tell you, all they need is 2 hours to fuck up every last one of you motherfuckers.
That's good.
right.
Yeah.
That's right.
I respect that, except for one thing.
What's that?
This is an indoor event. The conditions are mild.
2 hours.
They have that level of fat. I give them 15 minutes.
Tops.
And
Sweating.
and
Overeating.
They are.
This is why I don't want to have
gasping.
biologists on the goddamn
They'll-
podcast. I've said it before.
Do you remember?
They're napping in the corner while everybody else is at battle.
You remember Philip Seymour Hoffman masturbating in Boogie Nights?
Yeah, of course.
That's your polar bears after 15 minutes. They're just gasping and sweating.
It doesn't matter. Everybody will be dead in 10.
I like how Bradley also, he really gets it because he's already just made up that it's an indoor event now, which was not previously stipulated, but it's an indoor
Well, you
event.
did say a dome. I mean,
But that is
Okay.
how this
People-
works. You just kind of decide how
Yeah, you
it's
build
going to
your
work
own
in your own head. Yeah.
That's right. It's a
Yep.
roller derby.
All right, so Bradley, what are you going to add to your team, your crew?
Oh man, look, there's some great choices out there and some incredibly stupid ones, but here's my strategy. And I look at you, DeLuca,
Yep.
as kind of like a guidepost of what not to do. You pick it.
Yeah, you don't want to be a male model, you know.
Right. No, well, a hand model anyway. And I just, I just like, why are you always choosing second best? You know, you go for the Nile crocodile, which is smaller and less aggressive than the Indo-Pacific estuarine crocodile. You know, and then you pick the African elephant, which looks great, and it's classically you. It's a sock down the pants. It impresses the girls.
Now.
When it comes to fighting, it's not about size, it's about aggression.
Okay.
I'm gonna pick 50 male Asian elephants in must. And I'll tell you why.
All right.
They're faster in a smaller area than an African elephant, and even a female Asian elephant has 10 times the testosterone levels of an African male elephant.
Is that true?
They are-
I didn't know that. That's
it
fascinating.
It is true, and that's
Wow.
why they're incredibly ornery. They're very
They
aggressive,
are.
and now my strategy is revealed. by having the quick, aggressive, and incredibly venomous snakes on the ground, moving around, is going to scatter people. The cassowaries are basically just berserkers with knives on their feet, going to scatter people.
Sure.
And nothing pisses off a male Asian elephant in musk more than intrusion and movement, and they're just going to be running around crushing heads.
That logic is flawless.
Such a good
flawless.
Good. It's very, very
That
good.
logic is flawed. I mean, I'm fucked. I'm supposed to be the resident smart biologist on this show. Can you leave, please? You're killing my,
but
you're
here's the
killing
thing,
my
Bradley.
vibe.
Bradley, that's very well done.
I've still got a third.
He's
Yeah,
the
no,
only
I know.
person I've ever battle royaled against that I would say could come in second, possibly against me
God.
and three others.
God.
And here's the thing, Bradley. You have come in second, and that's great for a first timer, but not first. Because I don't
Okay.
think your elephants are going to do that well when they can't see anything. And so what I'm going to do for my last pick is draft my bird, which will be trained exclusively to peck out the eyes of all of your mammals. So what I'm going to do is pick my new favorite bird, because I've been doing a lot of research on this bird, the great horned owl.
You're obsessed with owls at the moment.
I'm really on an owl kick right now. So the great horned owl.
You're picking a
it's the
fat, slow owl? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
slow.
It knocks
so
fucking beavers out of the tree or whatever, porcupines.
beavers. It is the
Tree
largest
beavers?
owl in North America with a wingspan of 5 feet. It
a lot of
eats
owl.
porcupines. It knocks porcupines out of trees and eats them.
tough. That's not hard.
That's impressive. That's it. That's impressive.
Contend with that beak, it makes a scary hissing sound. You don't want to be around when that happens. You'll get scared. So as my owls peck out each of your mammals' eyes, my crocodiles protect me, and my elephants do the rest. So
No, not against BTG's fucking elephants. You have
I
shut
don't
up.
think
You
so,
can't
yeah.
root for someone else.
Yeah, what are you
African-
rooting for someone else?
It's okay. I have that kind of charisma. It's my cologne. It's
true.
But it's
true.
the problem you have with African elephants, and don't get me wrong, they are gods.
Yeah. They
But their social behavior is not designed to fight a bunch of people. They're designed to corral and protect each other. I don't think it's going to happen for you.
No
Well,
way.
if you look, for all the brosners listening, if you want to listen to BTG's bullshit, vote for him.
Right.
If you like Forrest and you think he's made a good team, vote for him. Obviously, mine's great. And Reteps is just fucking preposterous.
no,
He's
had
here.
me a tri-
Retep's here. He's a part of it. That's
he
important
had
to
me-
him.
He
He
showed
had me a
up.
tree beaver.
Yeah,
A tree
he showed
beaver,
up.
I was sold. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we're not big on participation trophies in this podcast, but Peter gets one every week.
It's
I mean, he
ridiculous. I've
shows up.
clearly won this battle
He comes to
royale.
play.
You're out of your fucking minds. These are
Reticulated
possibly my
Python.
best picks
That's
ever.
the worst pick you've ever made. You've drafted herpes as one of your animals several times,
Multiple
and
times.
And I
reticulated
won that battle
python.
royale. Thank you.
What, the herpes eagle? Is that what he drafted?
No, herpes. He thinks it's an animal. He's a bit confused about many things.
Yeah, just like you were
herpes virus.
confused about snake drafts. These assholes like to pick and fucking prod at technicalities constantly in battle royale. It's ridiculous.
I'd never heard of Battle Royale until today, but now it's all I live for.
It's fun. And by the way,
That's how it
Bradley, you
works.
did a great job. I will call to our many brosners to, hey, if you'd like us to have Bradley back on, tell us, because I'll beg him to do it if he has
Yeah,
time. And if
absolutely.
you think he should just fuck off, then tell us that too.
That's right.
I don't see why we can't do both.
Either way, if you hate him or you love him, go see Penguin Bloom. It is available, will be available in
Amazing
every
story.
country.
Amazing story. Truly touching.
It sounds like an amazing movie, and you are an amazing fucking guy, and you have some great stories, and I've really enjoyed
And by the way,
this.
we haven't even talked about your time as an astronaut in Russia, which is, I'm not lying about. That's real. So we have to have you
Yeah.
back on, mate.
We have to.
Well,
There's no choice.
I'll give you the short version. Vomiting in helmets.
of course.
Well, we want the long version, so we'll try and we'll beg him to come back on. I can promise you that.
Well, can I just say, it's an absolute joy to be part of this. I'm so glad you called DeLuca. It's been far too long. We used
I
to
know.
catch up for breakfast every now and then, and the pandemic, unfortunately, has driven the tyranny of distance between friends and colleagues. And so I came on this just to catch up with you and hang some shit. It's a joy to finally meet you, Forrest. As I said, we've crossed paths in so many bizarre places.
Right.
Yeah.
Some of the people you work with are some of the people that I work with, and I know that when I've reached out for help and said, "Hey, I'm in the middle of God knows where. I need to know where did you go for this or that. And you guys have always been generous, and I appreciate that.
Oh, likewise.
Peter, I'll probably forget you, but it's been great. And,
Likewise.
and no, seriously, gentlemen, this is a really fun podcast. Thanks for your support of the movie.
Of course,
I mean,
man.
that was incidental. I'm just glad to be there. If you ever want to talk shit about Wild Wonders, give me a call.
Beautiful.
For sure.
We
Thank
do.
you, everybody.
And by the way, real quick before we go, this guy, Bradley Trevor Greive, is like, colleges have him come and like lecture biology students. We're the only podcast in the world that has him come on and get shit-faced drunk with us because it's
And
a
make
lot
up
of
animal
fun.
fights. Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, there we go. Go ahead, Peter.
Be sure
Sign us out.
if you're listening via audio to go check out the YouTube so you can see BTG's beautiful face. You don't want to look at anybody else on this podcast. Wild Times, thewildtimespodcast.com/info for all the links to listen everywhere. BTG, love you. Hate you other two idiots.
Hey, real
Fuck off.
quick, for all the people listening on iTunes, come check out the YouTube for the daily videos. This week, we will announce the winners of the electric sunglasses and the Wild Time shirt. So those will only be announced on the daily videos on the YouTube. So come check that out. And get your fucking $200 sunglasses that Forrest sponsor hooked us up with.
Nice.
Worthwhile.
Yeah.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night.